Okay, hello everyone. Nice to see everyone. So, even though it was nice to get back to Sefer Tehillim, but since it is just a few days before Shavuos, I can't exactly resist the temptation to speak about Shavuos. And it's not only my temptation to speak about Shavuos, but if we're going into Shavuos, we should know what we're going into. We should at least have some food for thought other than cheesecake. So, the Yom Tov of Shavuos, when we think about Shavuos, we think about Kabalaas HaTorah. And the truth is that the concept of Shavuos being Yom Matan Torah, the day of Kabalaas HaTorah, is not something that appears in Torah Shebiksav. In the Chumash, we don't find Shavuos referred to as Yom Matan Torah. We do find several different names for Shavuos in the Psukim. We find that Shavuos is called B'Yom HaBikurim. So in Parshas Pinchas, when the Torah speaks about the different musafim, the karbanos that were brought special for each Yom Tov, the pasuk says V'Yom HaBikurim, on the day of the Bikurim. Bikurim are the first fruits. Why is Shavuos called the Yom HaBikurim? So the pasuk gives really its own reason why it's called Yom HaBikurim. It says, V'Yom HaBikurim b'hakrivechem mincha chadasha l'Hashem. That's when you bring a new carbon mincha. What does it mean, a new carbon mincha? A carbon mincha, the main ingredient of a carbon mincha is flour. Flour, of course, comes from wheat. Now we know that we have a halacha of yashan and chadash. We're not allowed to eat chadash. We're not allowed to eat from the new crops until after the second day of Pesach. On the second day of Pesach, we bring the carbon omer, and after we bring the carbon omer, which was made out of the new crop of barley, then we're allowed to start eating from the new crop. But while we eat from the new crop after the bringing of the carbon omer, we don't bring karbanos from the new crop until after Shavuos. So any carbon mincha that's brought all the way until Shavuos, that has to be made from the old crop, from the crop of the previous year. When do we start bringing chadash on the mizbeach? After Shavuos, after we bring the carbon of the shtei alechem. We have a special carbon on Shavuos. We bring shtei alechem, two special loaves of challah that we bring on the mizbeach. And once we bring that carbon, we could start bringing a mincha from the new crop. So why is Shavuos called Yom HaBikurim? Because that's when we first start bringing on the mizbeach the new crop. Another reason for the name Yom HaBikurim is that besides the new crop, that's also when they would start actually bringing the Bikurim to the Beis Hamikdash. Until then, you didn't start bringing it yet to the Beis Hamikdash. What happened over here? Okay, that's good. So that was the season for the bringing of the Bikurim. All right. The Bikurim, what is there for us to learn from Bikurim? If Shavuos is called the Yom HaBikurim, obviously there's something that we have to learn from it on Shavuos. And it also, you would think, would have some type of a tie-in to Matan Torah. If Kabbalas HaTorah was on Shavuos and this is the Yom HaBikurim, there should be some sort of tie-in. And what I would suggest is that there's a very, very, very important lesson for us to learn from the Bikurim. And it's a lesson that we have to take with us into the Torah and into our Avodas Hashem. The analogy that I always like to give is, well, before I say the analogy, let me ask you a question. You know, I remember there were different years, different summers that we grew a garden. So we planted tomatoes, we planted peppers, cucumbers, and the tomatoes that you grow in your backyard taste better than any tomatoes that you could buy in the store. They simply just have a lot more flavor. I like to say that those are real tomatoes. The ones that you buy in the stores are plastic tomatoes. By the time they finished with all the genetic and engineering and everything that they do with crossbreeding and selective breeding to make the tomato look like a gorgeous tomato and make it have an extended shelf life and make it, firm so that it could transport well and not get bruised, by the time they finished with all of that, they've edited out all the taste. But when you grow a tomato in your backyard, it tastes good. It doesn't always look good, though. You get these funny-looking tomatoes, all sorts of interesting shapes. And sometimes, if you're not a professional farmer and you don't have a great green thumb, sometimes you have to take that tomato and there's a piece that you have to cut off, either because it cracked or because it got bruised. But the rest of the tomato is a delicious tomato. But the thing about Bikurim is that when people brought Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash, what did they bring? They couldn't go through their crop and decide which one of the first pomegranates. Remember, Bikurim is only brought from the Shivas Haminim. It's only brought from the 7 special species of fruits that Eretz Yisrael is praised for. So one of those is a rimain, a pomegranate. Now you couldn't go and harvest your pomegranates and then pick out the nicest one and bring it to the Beis HaMikdash. That's not the way it worked. You went out to the orchard, you found the pomegranate that was ripening first. You looked over the tree and you saw a beautiful pomegranate that's starting to ripen, and you took a ribbon and you tied a ribbon around it in order to mark it, and that became the Bikurim. Now, is that necessarily the most beautiful riman on the tree? Probably not. And there's definitely no reason to say that it should be. It might be a stunted riman. It might be a riman that didn't grow very nicely. It might be small. It might be misshapen. It might not be very full and very flavorable. But that's the riman that you're going to have to bring for the Bikurim. Now, the interesting thing is, if you learn the Mishnah about the bringing of the Bikurim, you find that when Klal Yisrael brought the Bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash, there was a beautiful procession. They made a whole procession coming to the Beis HaMikdash, and they would take the fruits of the Bikurim and they would put them into beautiful baskets, and they would adorn them with all sorts of adornments and decorations, and they would sing and they would dance when they bring this to the Beis HaMikdash. You would think that you want the most beautiful riman, but that's not what you're bringing. You're bringing the first riman, no matter what it looked like. Why is that? So the analogy that I like to give is when you go into a store and you see that the shopkeeper has on the wall behind the cash register, he has $1 in a sheet protector or laminated, and it's attached to the wall. What is that $1? That $1 is the first $1 that the person made in his store. He opened up the store, he made a sale, he got $1, he hung up that $1 behind the register. Now, what kind of sale was the first sale? Was it a big sale? What if the first sale was a bag of potato chips? Somebody came in and he was hungry. It was a bag of potato chips. He gave $1 for a bag or a cold drink. And then a week later, somebody came in and went shopping for Yom Tov, and he spent $400. So maybe you should take the first $100 bill and hang it up. Maybe you should take at least the first $1 from the big sale. No. Whatever the first customer was, that's the dollar bill that's going on the wall behind the cash register. Why? Because that $1 is not $1. That $1 is not legal tender that the person, if he's in the store and somebody comes in and makes a purchase and needs $1 in change and there's no $1 in the till, he's not reaching up behind them on the wall, taking that $1 off and giving in that $1 for change. Why? Because that $1 represents all of the sweat and toil and tears and blood that went into the opening of the business. All of the sleepless nights making the plans for the business, and all of the phone calls to get a business loan, and all of the traveling around looking for the right location, and putting together the shelves, and putting together the marketing campaign and deciding what you're carrying and what you're not carrying, and the names and the logos and the stickers. It just goes on and on and on and on and on. And then when you open the store, there's no guarantee that you're going to be successful. But at least after all the work that you put in, you made it. You opened up the store. That's at least you got to that point. You opened up the store and you actually made a sale. That dollar bill is precious. It's the same thing by the Bikurim. What does that first fruit represent? The first stalk of wheat. You know what goes into wheat? You plow, and then you sow, and then you weed, and then you cut, and then you let it grow again, and you're constantly on the lookout, and every day you're waking up in the morning and you're looking up at the sky. What's the weather going to be like? Is there going to be enough rain? Is there going to be enough sun? Did I weed enough? Do I have to do some more work? Do I have to chase away pests? Do I have to protect it? Are there animals coming and attacking the produce? And then, after months and months, finally it's there, and it's growing in the stalks, and it's getting up to the time for the harvest. That's the most dangerous time, because you can't cut the wheat yet, because it didn't ripen yet. So you have to wait till the right time to harvest the wheat. But if a storm comes at the last minute, if a storm comes 2 days before you're ready to harvest, and you have a windstorm with driving rains, you could lose the whole crop. After months of sweat and toil and sleepless nights, you could lose the whole crop. And Baruch Hashem, you didn't. Baruch Hashem, there's a ripe stalk of wheat. That first stalk represents all the work that you put in. And that's the stalk that the Ribbono Shel Olam wants. Now you might ask yourself, why does the Ribbono Shel Olam need that stalk? That stalk is only precious to me. That stalk is precious to me because I put in all the work. So why does the Ribbono Shel Olam need that stalk? Let me take that stalk and let me make challah for Shabbos out of it. And let me go, the new crop. Why does that stalk have to go to the Beis HaMikdash? That's exactly why that stalk goes to the Beis HaMikdash. That stalk goes to the Beis HaMikdash because that's your acknowledgement and your recognition and your thank you to the Ribbono Shel Olam. That it's the Ribbono Shel Olam that made the crop grow. And it's the Ribbono Shel Olam that provided the rain. And it's the Ribbono Shel Olam that provided the sun. And it's the Ribbono Shel Olam who prevented the storm. And it's the Ribbono Shel Olam who allowed you to come to the point where you have a harvest. And therefore, I'm taking the very stalk that represents the sweat and the work of my hands, and I'm giving it to the Ribbono Shel Olam to acknowledge that all of the success comes from the Ribbono Shel Olam. So one lesson in the Bikurim is, I'm going to use the word simple. The simple lesson of acknowledging that all of our success, whatever we have, no matter how much we worked for it. There's a Mishnah in Avos that's very much on my mind nowadays because of some things that I'm involved in. But the Mishnah in Avos says, V'chol ha'misaskim im hatzibur, everybody who works for the tzibur, the exact wording is slipping my mind, they should work be'emunah. They should do their work faithfully. Kischus hatzibur misayatan v'tzidkasa memedes lad. What is the Mishnah saying? The Mishnah, according to some Rishonim, what the Mishnah is telling you is, you work for the tzibur, and you put in a lot of hard work for the tzibur, and you spend hours and hours and hours working for the tzibur. Let's say you're going ahead and you're raising money to build a building for a yeshiva. So you're going ahead and you're spending sleepless nights and you're making tough phone calls and you're busy from morning to night on all of the details of the construction and opening it up and putting everything together. There's so much that goes into it. The Mishnah says, remember, ki schos avoisa misayaton v'tzidkasa memedes lad, and then the Mishnah ends off, va'atem, what's the Mishnah? Va'atem, the words aren't coming to me right now, but the Mishnah says, you're going to get the schus as if you did it. What's the Mishnah saying? Really, the success that you have is not from the work that you do. If you work for the tzibur and your work comes to a successful end, you should know that the success is because of the schus avos of the tzibur. It's the schus of the tzibur and the forefathers of the tzibur, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That's what's giving all of your work success. So you might think, well, Rabbi Shalom, if you're telling me from the get-go that my work is nothing, that the success comes from the schus of the tzibur and not from the hard work that I put in, so why am I putting in all of this hard work? You don't need it anyway. So the Mishnah says, no, va'atem, and you, don't worry. The Rabbi Shalom is going to give you schar for all the work that you did as if it was your work that brought about the success. You deserve schar for the work that you put in. But at the same time, you need to know that ultimately, it's not your work that brings about success. If you made the phone call and you asked for the donation and you got the donation, it's not because you have a gifted tongue. It's not because you had the idea to call that person. It's the schus of the tzibur that the Rabbi Shalom made and arranged things so that person should give the money. It's not you, but you're going to get schar for what you did anyway, because you did what you were supposed to do and you put in the effort that was upon you to put in. So schar you'll get. But remember that it's not you. So that's the basic lesson of the Bikurim. The basic lesson of the Bikurim is, remember, after months and months and months of hard work, remember it's not you. The Rabbi Shalom gave you the success. But there's another lesson, and it's a lesson that also applies to us on a daily basis in our approach to Avodas Hashem. And I'll tell you what I mean. Nebuch, we went through this year plus of Corona and all of the difficulty and sadness that came with it. We had Nebuch, the tragedy in Meron on Lag BaOmer. We have now what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. And certainly people feel that the Rabbi Shalom is asking something. The Rabbi Shalom is looking for something. You want to know, what should you do? So one thing I always say is, Ish yedea nige liboy. Each person knows, if he's honest with himself, each person knows what he has to work on. But the lesson of the Bikurim that I want to say is, ask yourself a simple question. The Rabbi Shalom gives me so much. What do I give the Rabbi Shalom in return? What do I give the Rabbi Shalom? You know, Corona made us appreciate something, and many of you, the ones who have been coming to my shiurim for a long time, know that this is something that I said before Corona was even a thought. Where in the, like my kids like to say, in the BCE era, before Corona, you know, the before Corona era, I used to say in the shiurim all the time, do we thank the Rabbi Shalom for every breath? I used to say, people are worried about Parnasa. People lose sleep at night. Oh, Parnasa, what's going to be with the bills, and how am I going to pay for this, and how am I going to pay for that? Do you worry, am I going to breathe in 5 minutes? Why not? I once read somewhere a very cute line. It said, life life is a gift that has to be renewed every 3 minutes. Because if you go 3 minutes without breathing, you're not here anymore. So life is a gift that has to be renewed every 3 minutes. You can't take life for granted. How do you know you're going to breathe again in 3 minutes? Well, Corona made us even more thankful, or it should have made us more thankful for the gift of breathing. So the Rabbi Shalom gives you so much. Al kol neshima neshima. Every breath that you take, and every morsel of food that you eat, everything that you have, the Rabbi Shalom gives us so much. What do we give the Rabbi Shalom in return? Oh, what do you mean? What do we give the Rabbi Shalom? What do you mean? I give the Rabbi Shalom so much. Look, all of these mitzvahs, I get up in the morning and I daven and I put on tefillin, say Kriya Shema, there's so many mitzvahs, Chiras, Yitzias, Mitzrayim. So the other mitzvahs I say Daraisa. I come home, I eat breakfast, I bench. Benching is the only bracha that's a mitzvah I say Daraisa. Most brachas are only a Darabanan. Birchas Hamazon is the only bracha that's a Daraisa. So I come home, I bench. All of this is Avodas Hashem. All of this is I'm giving to the Rabbi Shalom. Yeah, but you know what a true gift is? A true gift. What's a true gift? Why do you buy your wife jewelry? A man buys his wife jewelry because gold is pretty? Is that why a man goes out and buys gold for his wife? You buy a diamond because a diamond is beautiful? So you give her a diamond because diamonds are beautiful? There are a lot of things that are beautiful. There might be, there are semi-precious stones that have all colors of the rainbow. You might be able to make a tennis bracelet of semi-precious stones that may very well be a lot prettier than a diamond tennis bracelet. So what's the worth of a diamond tennis bracelet? Why does it have to be a diamond tennis bracelet that costs so much money? Why does it have to be something that's $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000? Why can't it be something that's $350? And it's colorful and it's beautiful. And gold? Gold is very soft. Gold is soft and it bends and it breaks. What do you need gold for? Iron. That's the way to go. Steel. Something, come on, let's be practical. Something that, now in the new age, and the young hip people, I hope not by us, but maybe by the non-Jews, they're making silicone wedding bands. Because come on, if it's silicone, it's impervious and it's more practical and everything else. So what is it about gold? Why gold? Truth is, you could ask the question in a more basic way that my Rabbi, Rabbi always likes to ask. Why do you give a woman flowers? Shavuos, a lot of us buy flowers. Why flowers? You spend a lot of money on flowers, and if you don't get it home in time and cut it and get it into the water and put it in the right spot, a day later it's wilting. 2 days later it's wilting. In the best of times, in a week it's wilting. So why do you go out and spend hard-earned money on something that in the best of situations you can have it for a week? Get silk flowers at least. You want to get flowers? Get silk flowers. You'll have it for 10 years. Why do you get real flowers that wilt in a week? Makes no sense. And they cost so much money. Yet that's what you do. You get flowers. Everybody can't be crazy. Why is everybody getting flowers? The answer is simple. The answer is that the diamond tennis bracelet is not the diamonds. It's not the diamonds. And it's not the gold. And it's not the flowers. It's what they represent. And what they represent is, I worked hard for this pile of money. Diamonds are expensive. Gold is expensive. So you know what I gave you? Months and months of work. That's what I gave you. There's a lot of things I could have done with that money. But what I decided to do with that money is to dedicate it to you. You're right. If I spend $60 on flowers that are going to last for a week, $100 on flowers that last for a week, it means I spent $100 on something that was going to be pretty for a week. I could have taken that $100, I mean, for heaven's sakes, if you take the $100 and you buy 3 high-quality pots, you could have those pots in the kitchen for years. I still have pots that I bought when I got married. I bought high-quality pots. They're 29 years old. So you could buy a few good quality pots. You could buy a good block of good high-quality knives that when you go into the kitchen and you got a slice of roast for Yom Tov, it's a dream, and you can have it for years. Instead, I spent $100 on pretty flowers. You know why? Because it's for you. Because I'm willing to take $100 and waste it for you. To show how much I love you. To show how much I value you. And that's what the bracelet is. And that's what the gold is. And that's what the diamond is. It's all the same thing. Now, the same is true of our service to the Rabbi Shalom. You want to give something to the Rabbi Shalom? Give something to the Rabbi Shalom that costs. I don't mean in dollars necessarily. For some people, it's taka dollars. Some people, if that's the thing that they really value, so reach into your bank account and give tzedakah. And say, Rabbi Shalom, this is not easy for me, but I'm doing it for you. For somebody else, it's coming to Shacharis on time. So you want to give something to the Rabbi Shalom. Don't sit back and say, well, I put on tefillin every day. Is it hard for you to put on tefillin every day? Come on. You do it by rote. You've been doing it ever since you're 13 years old. Don't pat yourself on the back and say, wow, how special I am. I put on tefillin every day. But you come late to davening every day? Well, yeah, it's hard for me. You know, I'm up late at night, and in the morning, I'm not a morning person. And then, well, do you miss brachas every day? If you miss brachas every day, you're missing all of those amens. Every day, you're missing all of those amens. And it means that you come to shul late, and you're putting on your tefillin late, you're starting Psuki de Zimra late, and you're skipping half of Psuki de Zimra so that you should be up to the tzibur for tefillah b'tzibur. It's hard for you? It's a challenge? Okay, that's a gift to the Rabbi Shalom. So say, Rabbi Shalom, I want to give you something. You give me so much, I want to give you something. So I'm going to do something that's hard. I'm going to push myself to go do something that doesn't come easy to me. That's giving something to the Rabbi Shalom. Maybe there's a particular mitzvah that you find difficult. A mitzvah that you find hard. Go work on that mitzvah. Work. Don't just say, well, that's the way I am. Everybody has their strengths and everybody has their weaknesses. Chesed is not my thing. I'm not into chesed. I'm into daf yomi. Well, you know what? Daf yomi is a wonderful thing. But the Rebbe Shem wants chesed too. The Mishnah Navas, Ashleisha Dvar Ma'olam Oimid. The world stands on 3 things. I always say that what's unique about a tripod is if you take one leg off the tripod, it doesn't stand. If you have a table with 4 legs and you take off one, the table could stand until you push it, or until you lean on the wrong spot. But the table will stand. But if you have a tripod and you take out one leg, it falls. So, Al Shleisha Dvar Ma'olam Oimid. The world stands on 3 legs. Torah, Avodah is tefillah, is davening, Ugemilas Chasadim, and on acts of kindness. You can't take away one leg. You got to do all 3. So one of them is hard for you, work on it. Davening is hard for you, work on davening. Torah is hard for you, go to a shir. And nowadays, there's mamish no excuse. Nowadays, there's no excuse for any of it. Davening is hard for you. You can get 30 different types of art scroll sidurim. Interlinear, upperlinear, underlinear, intershminal, whatever. Whatever kind of English city you want, it's out there. You want French, it's there. You want Spanish, it's there. Whatever you want, it's there. A shir, go on. You can get a 5-minute share, a 10-minute share, a 15-minute share, a 20-minut share, an hour share. You want a long share? My cousin says a 3.5-hour daf yomi share every day. Gemara Rashi, Gemara Rishonim Achronim and Paiskim. 3.5 hours every day. It's in Union City. So you want a 3.5 hour daf yomi shir? You can get that. You want a 9-minute daf? I don't recommend it, but you could get that. Go to a shir. Find a shir. Learn some Torah. Gemilas chasadim is hard for you? There's so many ways to do chesed nowadays. There's an organization for everything. Do something. Put a smile on somebody's face. Do something. But that's giving the Rabbi Shalom. Now you're giving him something that's precious to you. Something that represents value. Because it's something that you have to work on. That's a lesson of the Bikurim. Now, Shavuos, Matan Torah, the pasuk says, "B'chodesh hashlishi l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim," the third month, Sivan, after B'nai Yisrael went out of Mitzrayim, b'yom hazeh ba'u midbar Sinai. On that day, on Rosh Chodesh Sivan, today was Rosh Chodesh Sivan. On Rosh Chodesh Sivan, it's 8:37. It's probably still Ben Hashmoshes, so it's still a shtickle Rosh Chodesh Sivan. On Rosh Chodesh Sivan, they came to Har Sinai, and the pasuk says, "Vayichan sham Yisrael neged hahar." Klal Yisrael encamped at the base of Har Sinai. Famous Rashi. Rashi says, the pasuk says, "Vayichan sham Yisrael," and Yisrael camped at Har Sinai. It's a lashon yochid. It's written in the singular, Yisrael. It doesn't say Yisraelim. It doesn't say Am Yisrael. It doesn't say Ha'am, the nation. It says Yisrael. Yisrael encamped by Har Sinai. Rashi says, why the singular? To teach you ki ish echad b'leiv echad, that they were unified. They were like one person with one heart. Avol shar kol hachanuyos, but all the other encampments, betarumos uvemachloikis, well, with complaining and with machlokes. But Har Sinai, when they went to be Mekabel the Torah HaKdosha, then they were Ki'ish Echad B'leiv Echad. Why does that matter? Why does that matter? It seems that was a prerequisite for Kabbalas HaTorah. We definitely find that it was a prerequisite for the Geula. We could find that by Moshe Rabbeinu, because the pasuk says by Moshe Rabbeinu, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu, "Vahi bayamim ahem, vayigdal Moshe vayetze alecha vayar b'sivloisam." When Moshe Rabbeinu was in Mitzrayim, growing up in Paro's house, he went out to go see what was going on by the Yidden, and he saw a Mitzri hitting a Yid, and he killed the Mitzri. Then it says, "Vayetze bayom hasheni," he went out on the second day, "V'hinei shnei anoshim ivrim nitzim," and he saw two Yidden fighting. Vayomer Rasha, and he said to the Rasha, "Lama saker reyecha." Then later, it says in the pasuk, "Vayira Moshe vayomer." Moshe was afraid, and he said, "Achein noida hadavar." Okay, what I did has become known. Rashi says over here, what does it mean, Achein noida hadavar? Rashi says, Noida li hadavar shehayisi tama olav. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I now understand the answer to a question that I was wondering about. Ma chatu Yisrael mikol ayin umois lihiyos nirdim b'avodas perech. What did Klal Yisrael do so bad, worse than all the 70 nations, that they should be in Golus and Mitzrayim, being oppressed with avodas perech? And Moshe Rabbeinu said, Aval roya ani shehem ru'uyim lekach. But now I see that they're worthy of it. Why? Because he saw Dag loy al sharab Yisrael Rishayim dal Turin. He saw that there were Yidden who were Rishayim, that were fighting, that were instigating fights one with the other. And Moshe Rabbeinu said, if so, they deserve Golus. So you see that a prerequisite for the Geula is to be Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. And when they went to Har Sinai to be Mekabel the Torah, they had to be Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. Why is that? I think something that we have to understand is that we cannot view Kabalaas HaTorah as being the work of a Yachid. Klal Yisrael is not a loose collection of isolated individuals. So that I have Kabalaas HaTorah, you have Kabalaas HaTorah, you have Kabalaas HaTorah. And excuse me, I'll be Mekabel the Torah my way. I'll be Mekabel the Torah, I'll do my Avodas Hashem. You go be Mekabel the Torah your way, you go do your Avodas Hashem. You know, I was just looking, I saw an online listing for a property recently, and one of the things that they were writing special about the property is that no matter which direction you look in, you can't see a neighbor. Sounds very tempting sometimes. But at the same time, it's not a Yiddish Gedank. A Yid is not supposed to be isolated. And I can't truly be Mekabel the Torah without you. You know why? Well, one of the reasons is because I can't be Mekayim the Torah without you. A Yid in isolation cannot be Mekayim the Torah properly. Think about it. Think about it. Quarantine. I can't hear Kriyas HaTorah. We're coming up to Shavuos. How many people didn't hear Rus last year? They weren't in shul. Tzedakah. If I live in isolation, I can't give tzedakah. Chesed. If I live in isolation, I can't do chasadim. There are so many mitzvahs that we have that are all dependent on us being a society, a community. And the Rabbeinu Shalom gave the Torah HaKadosha not for Yechidim, not for individuals. The Rabbeinu Shalom gave the Torah HaKadosha to create a Torah-dika community, a Torah-dika tzibur. And it should be a tzibur that works together al pi Torah. And it should be a tzibur that the world looks at and says, wow, you could have a tzibur of 3 million people living together in the midbar without any strife, without any machlokes, without any problems. Where do you have that nowadays? Go find it. Where do you have 3 million people living together in complete peace and harmony in a beautifully, wonderfully functioning society where everything works and everything works well? And everybody cares about everybody else, and whatever anybody needs, they can find it, and everybody's happy and everybody gets along. That's what the Torah was given for. The Torah was given to create that. Not to create you sitting in your vinkela, in your isolated house, doing the mitzvahs that you could do. That's no kunz. And that's not what the Rabbi Shalom gave the Torah for. So by Har Sinai, it had to be Ki'ish Echad B'Leiv Echad. One of the lessons that we have to take coming to Kabalaas HaTorah is that we have to be community-minded. And we have to be communal-minded. We have to think about other people. I like to tell my children a Yid is not supposed to live for himself. A Yid is supposed to live for somebody else. We don't live for ourselves. We don't live to take care of ourselves. Think about it. The Chazal say that our job in life is to look at the Rabbeinu Shalom and to say, Mahu af ata. What the Rabbeinu Shalom does, that's what you're supposed to do. Does the Rabbeinu Shalom live for himself? The Rabbeinu Shalom doesn't need to take care of himself. He's taken care of. He's fine. The Rabbeinu Shalom created us and he takes care of us. He's going chesed to us. We're supposed to live for others. We have to be part of a tzibur. And we have to look to contribute to the tzibur. And we have to look to help the tzibur. That's another lesson of Shavuos. Another lesson of Shavuos. Famous Chazal. Chazal say, pasuk should be right here, 1 second. Pasuk says in Yisrael, Vayotze Moshe Sa'am Likras HaElikim. Moshe Rabbeinu brought the nation out to greet, to come to the Rabbeinu Shalom. Vayisyatzvu, and they stood besachtis har, beneath the mountain. So the way we understand the pasuk simply is that beneath the mountain, what does it mean when people say they were encamped beneath the mountain? It means at the base of the mountain. But there's a Chazal say, Besachtis Hahar, Medrash, Shenitla Shahar Mimakaimai, the Rabbi Shalom uprooted Har Sinai, V'nichpa Aleim Kegigis, and he took Har Sinai and he positioned it over the Bnei Yisrael like a dome. Imagine the mountain being hollowed out from the inside. So he took the mountain and he held the mountain over the Bnei Yisrael, and he said, Im atem mekabel, if you're mekabel the Torah mutav, fine. V'im lav poitek v'raschem. And if you're not mekabel the Torah, I'm going to drop the mountain on you, and here you will be buried. Doesn't sound like a very uplifting, no pun intended, doesn't sound like a very uplifting way to be mekabel the Torah. That the Rabbi Shalom threatened us with annihilation by positioning the mountain over our heads and telling us, if you're not mekabel the Torah, I'm going to drop it on you. That doesn't sound, it sounds like we have a complaint over here. We will mekabel the Torah under duress. And indeed, Rava in the Gemara says, Mikan Moidah Rabba La'iraisa. From over here, there's a Moidah, there's a notification regarding the Kabalaas HaTorah, that Klal Yisrael does have a little bit of a pischon peh. Klal Yisrael has a way out. They could come and they could say, well, we didn't really accept this Torah willingly. We accepted it under duress. Now the Gemara says that doesn't work anymore nowadays, because by Purim, by the miracle of Purim, it says in the Megillah, Kimu v'kiblu, and they upheld and they accepted. And the Gemara darshans, Kimu ha-Yehudim mashe kiblu kvar. They reaffirmed the Kabbalas HaTorah that they made by Har Sinai. The Kabbalas HaTorah by Har Sinai was a little bit under duress. But the Kabbalas HaTorah that Klal Yisrael made after the Nes of Purim, that was a Kabbalah that they made ba'ahava, that they made out of love. Kimu, they reestablished after the Nes of Purim, mashe kiblu kvar, what they had already accepted in the past at Har Sinai. Fine, that's what the Gemara says. But what does this mean, that the Rabbi shall put the mountain over us? Were we really mekabel it under duress? So again, I'll use an analogy, and I'll tell you an important lesson that I think we're supposed to learn. The analogy I like to use, maybe because there's a history of it a little bit in my family, but I like to use the analogy of a family that has a family business. They own a hotel. And maybe they've owned this hotel for 30 years. And the people who work in the hotel, you have parents and children. The parents worked in the hotel. The children work in the hotel. The owner's family, the owner and his family, they know the employees and the employees' families. They come to each other's simchas. They come to each other's mourning. They know them. They're family. It's all like one big extended family. And the business goes on 1 decade, 2 decades. It's a successful business. But then, as happens, after 30 years, new properties are springing up. There's a new Hilton around the corner. There's a new Embassy Suites a half a mile away. There's a DoubleTree 3/4 of a mile away. And those properties are much newer and have a much newer style. And it has all the modern amenities. It has high-speed internet. And it has all the things that come with modern technology. And your property is an old property. So yeah, you add things on and you jury-rig things. But what are you going to do? Your lobby is an old lobby. It's not the big atrium with the trees and the fish ponds. It's old with couches and easy chairs. So, there's a limit to what you could do. But, you say to yourself, yeah, but everybody knows us and we give service with a smile and they've been coming here for years. But suddenly you start finding that, a month comes and you ask your accountant how's business, and he says, business is very slow this month. And you say, but I don't understand. It's Shavuos. We always do a Shavuos. Yeah, well, this year they canceled on us. Where are they going? Oh, they're going to the DoubleTree. Well, in the month of June, we're always booked up, with conventions and this and that. Yeah, but we only have one convention. What happened to the other conventions? Well, one is going to the Hilton because the Hilton has more conference rooms. And one went over there because of the high-speed internet. And one went over there. And suddenly you're struggling. Then one day the accountant walks in and the accountant says, look, I got bad news for you. This business isn't viable anymore. You got to stop the bleeding. You're bleeding out. You're losing money month after month after month after month. You can't keep going like this. You got to stop the bleeding, and it's time to call it a day. And you look and you say, what, I'm going to close the business? The business has been in my family for decades. I'm going to go close the business? You got to come up with something. Come on, you got to give me some advice. You got to give me some way out. So the accountant goes home at night. He does his homework. He comes back and he says, I have an idea for you. If you'll call in all the employees and you'll ask the employees that they should each take a voluntary 10% pay cut. If all the employees will get together and they'll take a 10% pay cut and you'll save 10% on payroll, which is your single largest, payable number, then you could take the money that you're saving on payroll. You could pump it back into the business. We could do a renovation on the lobby. And then we could tell people, you see, we're renovating. We're going to add on some more conference rooms. And next month, we're going to raise the ceiling in the ballroom. And we're going to put in a new sound system. And we're going to beef up the Wi-Fi. And people will see that there's stuff going on. You'll hold on to the business you have. You'll bring back some of the business. And hopefully you'll bring in some new business. But the success of the plan is dependent upon the employees taking that 10% pay cut. All right? So the owner calls in all the employees to an all-hands meeting. And he says, look, this is the story. I met with the accountants. I brought in Dun & Bradstreet, and we did an audit on the business. And the business is just not viable. But they're giving me this eitzah. If you'll take the pay cut, we could keep the doors open. So one guy in the back of the room says, Mr. Weiss, I can't believe it. Are you threatening us? You're threatening that you're going to fire us? No, I'm not threatening you. It's not a threat. I love you. You're all family members by me. But the business can't stay open if it's losing money month after month. So if the business is losing money month after month, I have no choice. I got to turn out the lights. And I got to put padlocks on the doors. That's it. What's the business here for? Business is here to make money. Can't lose money month after month. So am I threatening you? No. Quite the opposite. I care for you. And I care about you and your families the same way I care about my own. And therefore I want to keep the doors open. But the only way for me to keep the doors open is if you take the pay cut. You want to know why the Rabbi Shalom was Kaifa Aleim Har Kegigis? You want to know why the Rabbi Shalom held a mountain over their heads? I'll tell you why. Because the Pasuk says that the Rabbi Shalom would never have created the world if not for the Torah HaKadoshah. The world was created so that it should become a manifestation of the Torah HaKadoshah. That's why the world was created. It's quite to the contrary of public belief nowadays in the world. Just read the press and see what they're saying about what's going on in Eretz Yisrael. But the fact is that the Harabayis was created to house a Beis HaMikdash, so that the Karbonos should be brought in a Beis HaMikdash. That's why the Harabayis was created. The purpose of the Harabayis' creation is not being fulfilled now. Hopefully that will change b'meher v'yameinu. But the world was created to be a manifestation of the Torah HaKadoshah. Now the Rabbi Shalom offered the Torah to the Bnei Yishmael, and they said, "What's written in it?" And the Rabbi Shalom said, "Lo signov," and they said, "Sorry, we can't take it." The Rabbi Shalom offered the Torah HaKadoshah to the Bnei Esav. They said, "What does it say in it?" Lo sirtzach. Said, "Sorry, we can't take it." So the Rabbi Shalom came to Klal Yisrael and said, "Look, if you'll take it, mutav, good. So then I keep the lights on, because then there's a purpose to the world. Somebody accepted the Torah. Somebody is going to create a Torah society. Somebody is going to create an Am Yisrael, a Mamleches Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh, that keeps the Torah. Ki lekach Torah nasati lechem Torasi al tazevu. So then the world has a purpose. So then I'll keep the lights on. V'im lav. But if you're not going to accept the Torah, and no one's going to accept the Torah, then the world has no purpose. Then I'm going to turn out the lights. It's not pshat that I'm going to kill you. It's not a threat, I'm going to kill you. You got to realize I made the world for something. I made the world for the Torah HaKadoshah. If nobody's going to keep the Torah HaKadoshah, then there's no purpose for the world. So then I'm shutting off the lights. Happens to be that if I shut off the lights, it means that you go out of existence too. But it's not pshat a threat. Take it or I'll kill you. It's just, there's no purpose to the world. I can't keep a business open if it's losing money month after month. I got to shut the business. So you're going to lose your job. I'm not going to keep a world going for nothing. For what? For murder and for theft and for drugs and for BMWs? I'm not keeping a world going for that. I'm keeping a world going for what? For Zraim, for Mayid, for Nezikim, for Noshim, for Kachim, for Taris. I'm keeping a world going for Archaim and Yeridea and Ebenezer and Choshen Mishpat. That's what I'm keeping a world going for. So if you take it and you do it, fine. If not, I'm turning out the lights. The lesson that we have to take from there, it's so easy for us to get caught up in the world of Olam Hazeh, in the temporal, temporary, Gashmiistic world of Olam Hazeh. But we have to remember that that's not the purpose of the world. The Torah that we're Makabel on Shavuos, that's the only thing that gives the world purpose. And it's the only thing that gives the world continuity. And who's going to do it? The Umas Olam aren't going to do it. Who's going to do it? The Freie Yidden who never don't know anything about it? The Reform rabbis and their temples who don't even believe that the Torah is divine? They don't believe that the Torah HaKadoshah is Dvar Hashem Sinai? They're not going to do it. They're not going to turn the world into a manifestation of the Torah. Who's going to do it? The conservatives? Who also by now don't believe in Torah and Hashemayim? They're not going to do it. Freie Yidden who are assimilated, who don't know anything, they're not going to do it. So who's going to do it? It's up to us, Shomrei Torah Mitzvahs. It's up to those of us who know. We have to do it. So we're the only thing that's giving purpose and continuity to the world. And if we don't do it, then the Rebbeinu Shalom might as well shut the lights. So the responsibility that we have to look at our lives and to realize that that's what we need to do with our lives. Our priority has to be a living manifestation of the Torah. Our life has to be a manifestation of Torah. That's what our life has to be. Our days have to be Torah-dic days. They have to be days of getting up in the morning and washing Negelwasser, and then going to shul and putting on tefillin, and then going and sitting down to a shir and learning Torah and doing chasadim and living a Torah-dic life. And by doing that, we give purpose to the world. Nope. Could really go on and on and on when it comes to Shavuos and the topic of Torah, but it's already late. So Mirza Hashem, we should be Zaycha. We should have a true Kabalaas HaTorah. The Rabbi Shalom should accept our Kabalaas HaTorah. He should see that we want to give purpose to the world. The Rabbi Shalom should finally bring an end to all of the suffering. The silver lining of the suffering is that the Rabbi Shalom is talking to us. The worst thing is when the Rabbi Shalom doesn't talk to you. The Rabbi Shalom gave up on you. He doesn't talk to you. So then there's no hope. But now the Rabbi Shalom is talking to us. He's talking to us on a constant basis lately. COVID and terrorism and Hamas and Islamic Jihad and this and that. And here in the United States with the squad and the geniuses like this Rashida Tlaib and Omar Ilhan Omar, whatever it is a disgrace to the U.S. government to have people like this part of it. But those are messages to us. That's the Rabbi Shalom talking to us. And we have to be there, we have to listen, and we have to respond. Everyone should have a wonderful Yom Tov. It should be an uplifting Yom Tov. It should be a ruchniistic Yom Tov. And by the time we get together again on the other side of Yom Tov, we should all have an aliyah. And we should be different people on the back end.
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
That it's very easy, like especially when you're sitting there and you're seeing like your coworkers. It's so easy to look at it that we have